and welcome back to the Consult a Counselor series, where I answer parenting-related questions so that you can be present and at ease with your child and live life mindfully. Today's question is, I think my kid may have ADHD. What do I do? So because you already have that suspicion, I'm going to answer the question as you asked it. But for those who do not have a suspicion and you hear other people say, have you ever gotten your kid checked? I know that can be a lot to hear. However, if someone is just telling you that, just the first tip is talk to a licensed or a trained professional. Seek professional help. So that is the tip for either camp you're in. You want to make sure that you speak with a healthcare provider or a mental health specialist, like a licensed therapist who specializes in ADHD for children. They may give you a scale for you to fill out. They may give you a scale for teachers and educators to fill out just to see how kids can act depending on different settings. They put all that together, observe the child, and then you may have a diagnosis. It's also very important to keep notes, and I mean written notes or on like a Google Keep or a notepad in your phone on what you're observing. Because if you have these suspicions, what happens is that then when you're asked about it, you say, well, I think, or maybe sometimes, and that is very different than having notes on this day at this time, this happened, and this is why I think this happened. That really gives a professional an idea as to how often things are happening, the frequency, and also the intensity, like on a scale of 1 through 10. Is it always at a 10, or is it somewhere in between? You may also want to help out your children, and this is true regardless if your child has a diagnosis or not. Establish a routine. Kids and our brains in general thrive on schedules. So try to have a structured routine so that when your kids come home from school, they know already what to do first, second, and third. Now, in order to do this effectively, it's much more than just saying, here's what we're doing and let's start doing it. You really want to model what this looks like for your kids. That means that you're going to do it with them. You are going to say out loud as you're doing the things so that they can also view you and hear you say these things. And you have to practice them. Yes, you think it's simple, but especially if your child may have a diagnosis, you want to make sure that you are consistent in doing the same thing over and over so that eventually they develop those skills for themselves. You want to, as much as possible, also break things down into smaller steps, or as I like to call it, chunking. Because if you give them, do a this and this and then this and then that, they're only going to remember maybe one out of those four things. So if it's a large task, break it down into a smaller, more manageable task and give them just one or two things at a time, because your brains work differently. And we want to make sure that we work with our kids' skills. Maybe they are talented in another area, but if they don't have the skill of remembering a long string of directions, then just work with them. Give them one or two things at a time. Does that require you as a parent or caregiver or educator to put in a little bit more effort? Yes, but that's what we do for our kids. So we have to practice patience and understanding because, again, we want our kids to get things right away, especially if we're doing comparison, which I know that we do it, even though we really shouldn't. Because if you have two kids at home, you can tell the one kid, why aren't you more like the other one? Or if you're comparing your child to a friend's child, it's natural to do that. But please have patience and understanding that if their brain works differently, again, we don't want to put them down for what they can't control. We want to boost their self-esteem. We want to give them that belief, that affirmation of themselves so that they can believe that they can too do it. And then we want to have the patience and help them practice the thing that we want them to conquer, which can be a lot of executive functioning skills like learning what to prioritize, what to do first, second, third, how to organize their things. So many times we say, put your books away nicely or organize your stuff. We have to teach our kids how to do these things. They just don't come pre-programmed knowing what to do. And then if we maintain the consistency of the routines that we're putting in place, that can also be very helpful. And bringing it back to the first tip, there's so many more, but these are just quick tips to get you going. Bringing it back to the first tip, the reason why you want to seek out a mental health therapist or a doctor is because if your child does indeed have the diagnosis of ADHD, whether it's inattentive type or hyperactive type, then your child may be eligible for a 504 accommodation plan. I say may be eligible because they have to go through an eligibility process. It's not a one size fit all for all, and schools don't give them out like cookies either. But if the school deems that your child is eligible, then your child can receive accommodations. And this doesn't mean that your child will have a curriculum change for them. They're still learning what their peers are learning. But what it does mean is that your child will have accommodations to help level out the playing field. So, as a simple example, if you're in a wheelchair and cannot walk down the stairs in the school, then the school has to find you an elevator or maybe let you go extra time in the hallway so that you can take the hallway that has the ramp instead of the closest hallway that has the stairs without you getting penalized if you arrive late to the next class. So that's a simple example. They're not changing what you're learning, perhaps tips on how to learn better. And these types of accommodations can maybe include preferential seating. Doesn't always mean at the front of the class. It may mean putting the child in a spot where they have less distractions going on. It may mean refocusing the child, giving them verbal and nonverbal cues to get their attention. Asking them to see if they can repeat what they heard back to you, asking them to see if they understood the directions, and giving them a chance to go to their locker and get their thing that they forgot before taking points off. Because again, having ADHD is not something that they can control just as much as I can't control that I need glasses to see better. So, in order for me to help my eyesight, I get glasses, and now the playing field is even. And that is what a 504 accommodation plan can do for your child. If you are wanting to learn more about the differences between IEPs and 504 plan, you can contact me through my website, freetobemindful.com, and we can set up a time for an educational consultation. And if you didn't know, October is ADHD Awareness Month. So please take the time to educate yourself. There is nothing wrong with a child or an adult that has ADHD. It's just a matter of working with them to help them learn and keep their love of learning. So I hope this helped. If you think it could help another mom or dad friend, be sure to share it with them and subscribe to my page so that you don't miss the next one. If you have any questions for the Consulted Counselor series, you can DM me on Instagram at Counselor V De Jesus or just email me at support@freetobemindful.com. And remember, in a world where you are free to be anything that you want to be, you are always free to be mindful. Catch you next time.